Welcome to Smash Fiction, where we pit two or more nerd icons against each other in a battle of strength, or wits, or songs with thinly veiled sexual overtones, and see who would win.
I don't think they really veil them at all, honestly.
They're just kind of out in the open.
This week, Spinal Tap versus Flight of the Conchords. Welcome to the first annual Real Battle of the Fictional Bands. We've been treated to some truly outstanding performances over the last couple of days. Dozens of bands have come to compete, different nations, different genres, all completely fake. I want to give a shout out to some of the excellent shows we've seen from bands like Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, Gem and the Holograms, and Sex Babam. We at the Battle of the Bands would also like to extend our condolences to the families of those killed during Death Clock's performance.
Everyone bow your heads.
Moment of silence, please. I said silence, Hannah.
Not laughing at the poor dead families.
It's like we got Dr. Hibbert up in here.
But it's all come down to this. After countless rounds of competition and elimination, only two bands remain. And they've gathered here today, along with an audience of thousands, for one final matchup to determine who will gain the coveted spot in the Hall of Fame. On stage left, from a country apparently called New Zealand, there's hobbits there, right?
Never heard of it. I don't know.
It's that country's fourth most popular guitar-based digibongo, acapella, rap, funk, comedy, folk duo. Please welcome to the stage, Flight of the Conchords. And on stage right, it's one of the UK's loudest bands. You know them from albums such as Brainhammer, Intravenous de Milo, and Shark Sandwich. Please welcome to the stage, Spinal Tap.
Tap, 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 tap.
Woo! Get him off the stage!
Hello, Smash Fiction!
The two bands will be taking turns playing songs to the same audience, but anything can happen. Which real fake band will take home the fake real award? I don't know. Isn't music, like, subjective and stuff? I guess I, Kit Mulcairn, will have to choose anyway. Advocating for Spinal Tap are Colin Mulcairn.
As long as there's, sex and drugs, I can do without the rock and roll.
And Miles Schneiderman.
These arguments go to 11.
I'm glad we got that out of the way now.
Oh, there'll be more.
Yeah, if you don't think that's ever coming up again this episode, I hate to break it to you.
Advocating for Flight of the Conchords are Dan Mulcairn.
You're gonna wake up in a smoothie.
And our guest advocate this week, Hannah Pascoe.
Looking around the room, I can tell that you are the most terrible band in the room.
Aww.
In the whole wide room.
Ooh, served already. In order to determine which team goes first this week, the contestants were each given a hotel room to trash. Team Conchords not only turned their room literally upside down, they then snuck into the opposing team's room and completely cleaned it up. So they'll be going first. Take the stage, guys.
So, Spinal Tap is inherently a band in decline. Flight of the Conchords have nowhere to go but up. They'll win this fight hands down because, while Tap has some considerable pull among white male metalheads, Flight of the Conchords will grab everyone else. I'll grant you, neither band has a perfect track record when it comes to dealing with women respectfully. Virtually any Spinal Tap song about women inevitably ends up being degrading and objectifying, treating women as sex objects. Big Bottom, Sex Farm, Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You Tonight, not to mention the original artwork for their album Smell the Glove, which displayed a naked woman in a dog collar. And
Hey, that album cover was black, sir. It was black.
not in the first draft, sir.
Oh, the first draft was far worse.
And when Tap is accused of being sexist, they simply ask in a puzzled way, what's wrong with being sexy? They literally do not know the definition of the word. Flight of the Conchords also have a record of sexualizing women in songs like Boom or Business Time. But as Jermaine comments in Hip Hopopotamus versus Rhymenoceros, yes, sometimes my lyrics are sexist, but you lovely bitches and hoes should know I'm trying to correct this. And they do correct this. A Kiss Is Not a Contract is explicitly about displaying restraint in relationships with women. And while Ladies of the World is partially an expression of lust, it's also an expression of love and respect, and one which is directed to all the ladies of the world, not just the ones that noted chauvinist Spinal Tap would deem to be worth their time. Boom. Flight of the Conchords just won half the audience. On a different note, Spinal Tap has a long history of things going terribly wrong for them during their performances. Whether it's Derek Smalls' cocoon malfunctioning, or their towering set pieces being in danger of being crushed by a dwarf. Plus, in order for Spinal Tap to play, they'll have to find the stage from their dressing room, which is something that they've seemed to have an issue with in the past.
Once. It happened once.
I somehow doubt it happened once. We saw it happen once. I doubt that was an isolated incident.
That's actually a good point.
Flight of the Conchords are not without their problems, but in general, those problems are relegated to times when they're not performing, such as facing the racism of street fruit vendors, being mugged, having their landlord sneak into their apartment to kiss them while they sleep. Now that they've gotten to the point where they're actually on stage, they have nothing to worry about. But all it'll take is a stray air traffic controller signal, and Tap's wireless transmitters will be overwhelmed and their performance ruined. And when Spinal Tap screws up, which will happen, and the audience laughs at them, which will happen, that's the end for them. The band has stated that they don't like being laughed at by the audience. In fact, the biggest fight that they have in the movie, which results in their manager quitting in an angry huff, resulted from their perception that the audience was laughing at them. As soon as they screw up, their performance will fall apart. The Conchords, on the other hand, are much more in control of their emotions, and they may not even notice the laughter that certain aspects of their performance might bring out in the audience. But we're ignoring the biggest elephant in the room. Who's bigger than both Tap and the Conchords? David Bowie. And Bowie has appeared as a spectral entity to help out the Flight of the Conchords before. He'll do it again. He might even turn into an eagle. Now, you can argue all you want about Tap being able to take on Flight of the Conchords, but they can't take on Bowie in all his various incarnations. It just can't be done. Hannah?
Wow. What a way to finish your arguments, you beautiful man.
Okay, first and foremost, Flight of the Conchords has much greater appeal across many genres. Spinal Tap is limited in what they do to metal, which, let's face it, maybe its time in the sun has passed a little bit.
Oh, boo.
Whereas Flight of the Conchords, yeah, listen, it's still popular, but it definitely had its heyday. And it's still rocking and rolling out there. But Flight of the Conchords have pop songs. They have rap songs. There's funk, there's folk, there's techno. There's a little bit of something for everyone. Whereas Spinal Tap's fan base is metalheads. You know? That sentence didn't end. That's fine. As well as appealing to a huge range of music-loving audience members, Flight of the Conchords is far better at appealing to non-white audiences. Spinal Tap is known for its, I don't know if blatant's the right word, but they definitely have no intention of concealing their racist ways. Whereas I'll Be the Racist Dragon is a classic example of Flight of the Conchords looking at the world and saying, hey, racism exists, but we can all learn to not be racist. As well, they've experienced racism in their own lives. Brett and Jermaine were targeted by a racist fruit vendor for being from New Zealand, which is a far more interesting country to come from than England. If time to say so. There are better mountains. They've got dragons and shit. So, Flight of the Conchords are talking to real people with real issues about today. They're not dealing with being rock stars, because they're not. They're just normal guys. They've got problems like we all do, like paying our rent. And therefore, they're much more appealing to everyone in the world. Plus, they're total babes. Total babes. You got Brett. He's got a little beard. He's really little and cute and like the handsome one. And then there's Jermaine, who is a giant, gorgeous man who you just know, you look at his lips, you look at his hips, you just know he could push you up against a wall and just do things to you that would blow your world.
Whoa.
And
Whoa.
what more do you want from a band than looking at them and saying, yes, you can sex me up. And thus, Flight of the Conchords are superior.
All right, let me get my towel to dab the sweat from my brow real quick.
Yeah, the sweat's on your brow.
Ooh, that's a little much.
All right, great showing, Conchords. Spinal Tap blows away.
Oh, yeah. Colin, tonight we're gonna win on Smash Fiction. You know how I know?
How do you know?
Because it's Wednesday, and Wednesday night is the night that we usually win on Smash Fiction. Tuesday night is the night that we usually have last-minute conversations about strategy and miss each other's emails again. But Wednesday night is the night that we're winning on Smash Fiction, when everything is just right. You're not worried about Flight of the Conchords winning a battle of the bands because they have no fans. There's no good arguments in their favor. Conditions are perfect for winning on Smash Fiction. You turn to me and you say something undeniable like, Flight of the Conchords got shipped back to New Zealand to tend sheep while Spinal Tap was selling out shows in Japan. I know what you're trying to say, Colin. You're trying to say, oh yeah, it's business time.
I'm gonna run out of dry towel to dab myself.
The song Business Time is basically a microcosm of everything you need to know about Flight of the Conchords. Like most of their songs, it takes place in Jermaine's imagination, in which he has won over Sally, who represents music fans in this metaphor, has sex with her, plays music to them in this metaphor, and even though she is totally bored and uninterested, he still thinks she's totally into it. The sad truth about Flight of the Conchords in this battle is any success they will have will be in their own minds, and even then, it won't be all that successful. Think about what we're doing here. We're comparing a legendary band with legions of followers to a completely unknown two-man act with precisely one fan. Her name is Mel, and at one point in the show, the Conchords are forced to move in with her and her husband. And then they break the two of them up. Spinal Tap has everything going for them here. They have fans who'll show up. They have songs that were and are hits, both domestically and internationally. They have an enormous budget for things like props and stage effects. You're telling me that Flight of the Conchords is going to be able to afford anything as cool as those cocoons that David, Nigel, and Derek step out of when it's time to play Rock and Roll Creation?
You might not want to bring up those cocoons, buddy boy.
One of their most underrated songs, by the way. Okay. No, I heard your point about that.
Real quick, yeah. If you're talking about budget, I believe that the amount of resources at Tap's fingertips is orders of magnitude greater than the tragically poor Conchords, who are left unable to pay their phone bill, their gas bill, and the electric bill after Brett dared to spend $2.79 on a new cup.
It was a nice cup.
And don't worry, we'll get to your statements about their stage malfunctions in rebuttals. It's just going to be them, their instruments, and amplifiers that don't even go up to 11. Spinal Tap are also top-level showmen, accustomed to grabbing their audience by the balls and not letting go. Flight of the Conchords might be able to turn into showmen when they're playing, again in their minds, but once the music stops, they're just two introverted broke guys with New Zealand accents. They play a hell of a song, sure, but can they keep a full set going with the audience engaged from start to finish? I don't think so. Finally, what really separates Tap from the pack is their versatility. As much as you want to say that all they can do is play metal, they can play just about any kind of music the situation calls for. If they need 60s hippie stuff, they'll bust out Listen to the Flower People. If they need to go more experimental, they have Jazz Odyssey in their back pocket. They can even do classical piano ballads if they want to. You think Flight of the Conchords could ever come up with something as emotionally moving and resonant and musically flawless as Lick My Love Pump? No! Flight of the Conchords is simply out of their league in this one. When the time comes to rock the house, all they're going to do is break like the wind.
Yeah, so in addition to everything that Miles talked about, Tap has a great ability to connect to their audience. At their best, they fill huge arenas with screaming, enthusiastic crowds. To quote one of their fans, it's like you become one with the guys in the band. I mean, there's no division. The music just unites people with the players. Truer words were never spoken.
Except by us.
And yeah, the only people that, as we talked about, that the Conchords can really connect with is Mel, who doesn't really seem to care about their music. She more just wants to bang them.
Stalker.
Yeah, and when you look at their gigs are often totally empty or just have one or two confused onlookers. In the episode New Zealand Town, you see that they have a totally empty gig that not even their number one fan, Mel, decides to show up to. And let's talk about the crowd that they're going to be seeing here for a second. The crowd, which, I mean, we've established that Tap has had their ups and downs in popularity over the years, but there will at least be some Tap fans in the audience. You talked about the fact that their lyrics may have some sexist bits to them, and that may be true, but that may mean
That's
that
definitely true.
They're probably not going to attract the most open-minded and respectful of fans. There are certain metal bands at music festivals that nobody wants to open for because whatever band goes on before them, they just get heckled the entire time by angry fans. Tap is definitely going going to be one of those bands, and the fragile little New Zealanders are probably not going to be able to handle the screaming legions of Tap fans throwing things at them. Although Tap has its difficulties and occasional wanes in popularity, the film This Is Spinal Tap ends with the band setting aside their differences, pulling themselves out of their funk, and going on to have a hugely successful tour in Japan. Tap has a tendency to jump on whatever musical style happens to be hot at the moment, mod rock in the 60s, flower child rock in the 70s, and glam metal in the 80s, but since then, we can only assume that maybe they morphed into a grunge band in the 90s and a new metal band in the new millennium. And as opposed to the TV show Flight of the Conchords, which ends with the Conchords failing to get enough money to pay their rent, becoming homeless, and then returning to New Zealand as failures. They give up their careers as musicians and go back to herding sheep.
I'm just picturing like the singer from Disturbed singing Big Bottom now.
Yes.
That'd be kind of awesome.
All right. Very, very good shows from the both of you. But now I think it's time for some rebuttal encores. Chords, take it away.
Hannah, do you have anything you want to start with?
I definitely think there are too many dicks on the Spinal Tap dance floor. And I will take your Lick My Love Pump and raise you a Sugar Lumps, because that song is erotic.
Yeah, the cucumbers that Spinal Tap ineffectually stuffs down their pants have nothing the Flight of the Conchords' natural sugar lumps. But here's the thing. You know what'll really derail the quality of a musical performance? Having your drummer explode, or encounter a tragic garden-related accident, or choke to death on someone else's vomit.
They could never prove whose vomit it was.
Well, no, you can't dust for vomit.
Yes,
But even if the drummer defies the laws of probability and survives, chances are he's only been with the band since the death of the preceding drummer and will be much less familiar with the material. Plus, if I was hired on as a Spinal Tap drummer, I wouldn't be able to concentrate on playing music at all. I would think that any loud sound I heard was the sound of the lighting rig about to collapse on top of me.
Well, fortunately, drumming for Spinal Tap, from what I hear in the music, is not the most onerous of activities. It's really about the other three guys.
And also, neither Brett nor Jermaine have ever needed a roadie to come out on stage in order to help one of them stand up or escape from a cocoon turned coffin.
Because they don't rock nearly as hard. When there's big risk, big rewards.
Yeah, they've never done that because they don't have roadies or stage equipment.
And they've never launched into a guitar solo so, face melting that it caused them to fall onto their back.
You guys talk about Flight of the Conchords performing for, uninterested crowds. What about when Spinal Tap played for that Air Force crowd? That's what's going to happen anytime they try to play for a crowd that isn't purely metalheads. They just don't get the music. But as we've mentioned, Flight of the Conchords has a little something for everyone. They will be able to find a niche in the audience with someone, and that's all it's going to take to put them over on Spinal Tap.
We've already demonstrated that Spinal Tap has versatility in genre. They can do a bunch of different things depending on how the crowd reacts.
Well, sure.
No one's going to garf with any member of Spinal Tap.
That is an
It's just a
excellent
fact.
Yeah.
Because people actually have fantasies about the members of Spinal Tap. People who aren't just Mel.
You guys talk about how versatile Spinal Tap is. Brett is seen playing 4 different instruments, and Jermaine plays 9 instruments. And that's not including singing for either of them. No member of Spinal Tap even comes close to their talent.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for you to continue. I was waiting for my turn.
Are you guys wrapped up? Shall we go to Tap's Encore?
I have one other thing I would like to point out.
All right.
So in the end,
Encore.
this is a confrontation and a competition. You know what musical genre excels at off-the-cuff contextual music that focuses on outdoing an opponent? Rap. Now, Flight of the Conchords have shown that they are masters of the rap battle in Hip Hopopotamus versus Rhymenoceros, and arguably the lyrics of songs like Hurt Feelings and Mother Uckas could be retooled to specifically take Tap down a peg or two. And they'll have nothing to counter it with, because the last time that they tried to improvise on their Jazz Odyssey, in that festival show where they had second billing to a puppet show, that was not, shall we say, one of their stronger performances, and the audience very much reflected that.
Okay, so we good?
Yes.
Yeah, you can rebut.
Okay, so you've pulled out Tap at their worst, but Conchords at their worst is just as bad, and that is a much higher percentage of their gigs that we're talking about here.
You mentioned at the beginning that Spinal Tap is a band in decline, and that's actually not true, as we mentioned before. The film, This is Spinal Tap, showed them in decline, but by the end of the movie, they are back, man. Sex Farm is number 5 on the charts in Japan. They're doing a big tour. The band is back together, and everything is good. Last time we saw Flight of the Conchords, they were back in New Zealand being shepherds again.
And you mentioned that
They were still making music.
were they?
With the shepherds?
They're not in New
For the
Zealand.
They were. Did no one watch the end of the episode? They made a new song out of new instruments, including a fence.
I'm sure if the audience is filled with sheep, they'll be very impressed.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that Spinal Tap does not know what sexism is. And you are correct. They do not know what sexism is. So does that make them horrible people?
Yes.
No, it makes them stupid. And the difference being that this was, the early 80s, and they're a couple years behind, sometimes. But we've established, if this is taking place in modern times, they do nothing but follow whatever trends happen to be going on at the times. They may not be the first ones, the first grunge band, but, a couple months after Nirvana released Nevermind, then Spinal Tap would probably release, I don't know. Miles, come up with a grungy sexual innuendo pun for me on the spot.
Penis.
Great. That's the one. And then I'm sure shortly after, Linkin Park and Disturbed and whatnot released their stuff, they would do that as well. And once the sort of new PC movement was sweeping through the land, Tap would of course be jumping on the bandwagon and acting all PC because that's what they did. I mean, we saw them being friggin' flower children. So saying that they're not able to adapt is just nonsense. It is bananas.
Regarding your points about the audience and their relative sympathies between Spinal Tap and Flight of the Conchords, this is a Battle of the Band show, and it's a big Battle of the Band show. I will concede that it's unrealistic to expect a huge majority of the audience to be metalheads, but it's equally unrealistic to expect even 50% of the audience to be people terribly concerned with social issues, who know enough about Flight of the Conchords to know that they're a struggling outfit and thus have sympathy for them. This is a crowd here for a show that is based around combat, as you said. These are going to be rowdy, rugged, rough fans who are not going to give a shit about Flight of the Conchords' social messages in their music. They just want to hear some fucking awesome songs, and that's what Spinal Tap will give them.
Yeah, and from the distance they're going to be standing at, they're not going to be able to see Flight of the Conchords' adorable faces way on that tiny little stage, and their tiny little amplifiers that, I'm guessing, Miles, I'm going to do one better, they probably go up to maybe 8 at best.
Maybe 8.5.
Yeah, that's maybe. Probably I think New Zealand amplifiers go up to 8.5 because they don't want to disturb anyone, they don't want to be too loud.
We can go ahead and check off New Zealand of the increasing list of countries that we here at Smash Fiction have pissed off.
I just said they were polite.
Those guys had it coming.
Yeah.
They're not polite.
They'll be lucky if their muttered lyrics can reach the 10th row back.
Yeah, but see, all of your arguments are contingent upon your assumption that Spinal Tap will make it to stage, which, as I've mentioned, is not 100% guaranteed. On the other hand, Murray makes sure that he takes role at every single Spinal Tap event. He knows 100% that both Brett and Jermaine are there, they will be on stage, and they will be ready to rock.
Murray is going to be too busy worrying about the crazy dogs to worry about whether or not Flight of the Conchords is getting to the venue on time. And this Battle of the Bands thing is a huge, long event, much longer than any standard Spinal Tap show. They're going to have plenty of time to make the stage.
By the time when they get lost, you hear the crowds are just cheering tap, tap, tap the entire time.
Yeah,
they're just getting more worked up. And you talk about their failures when they're trapped in the little Genesis pod thingies in Rock and Roll Creation. The crowd is still enjoying themselves a whole lot. And, when the dude finally pulls himself out of his pod at the end, they start cheering and they love it.
Yeah, those are Tap fans, though.
Not only that, but you suggest that, Spinal Tap has a tendency toward just utter ruination every time they go on stage. When that Cocoon didn't open for Derek, he kept playing. The song kept going. There was no interruption of the show. I'm pretty sure Nigel is going to know better not to use his wireless guitar after that Air Force show. And regarding the Stonehenge thing, that was just a one-time accident because the dude is too stupid to know the difference between inches and feet size.
But it's very clear that they would have the budget for an 18-foot
Yes.
Stonehenge if they
Absolutely.
and that's probably a mistake they're not going to make again. Let's just say.
I don't know about that. I don't know if you guys have watched any recent
Yeah.
live performances of Spinal Tap. Every damn time, it's an 18-inch tall Stonehenge. Every single time. And they always
Again,
look
'cause it's a thing
surprised and
now.
disappointed.
It's a thing now.
Yeah, now it's a thing. Now when they come out with the 8-inch Stonehenge, people cheer because that's part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah, again, Tap fans cheer. This audience is not made up solely of Tap fans.
No.
But
I'm just saying.
it will be by the end.
Yeah, it will be by the end, that's for damn sure. And this time we're having an 18-foot version of Stonehenge, motherfucker. This thing is coming down, and it's not going to be in any danger of being crushed by any dwarves.
Yeah, each one of its feet is going to crush one of the Conchords. if they
Also-
even bothered to both show up, if they haven't broken up. You want to talk about bands breaking up? I think that the Conchords break up about once every 2 episodes.
Seriously. And the Conchords might not even make it to the stage themselves because they're going to be too distraught over the fact that their one fan, Mel, their stalker, has kind of sort of wandered off to go try and date one of the Spinal Tap members and break them up.
She
So,
never would. She would never do that.
And honestly, I think they'd be okay with that.
They definitely would be. Anything to distract Mel.
All right, that was quite the encore. I'm super rocked out.
Is it time for a second encore?
Well,
Oh, what are those special effects I hear?
What?
Hey, it's lightning.
it's actually thunder, but yeah.
Oh. All right, you're disqualified. Get it here.
No one else is going to make boom sounds with me?
Sound.
We have actual sounds now.
But it's...
It's a thing now, kid. Just go with it.
All right.
Boom.
Thank you. As the dueling bands are each wrapping up their sets with their best material, Spinal Tap's smoke machines exhale an oddly colored mist. As it washes over the entire area, changes begin to occur within both bands, as well as
changes?
the audience. Yes, changes, Colin. Flashback to when the roadies were setting up the stages. In the chaos of the setup, one of Deathclock's hooded servants misplaced the band's expensive and mysteriously acquired mist that was sure to make their performance the most metal thing ever. However, the special canisters were mixed up with Spinal Tap's own fog-creating equipment, and so Deathclock's performance was only as brutally metal as it always is. Flashing back forward, as the strange mist washes over the bands and the first 100 or so rows of audience, those with inhuman genetics are changed into various forms and acquire various powers. Shut up, Dan. I see you laughing.
Oh,
Is
no.
this fucking Terrigen Mist?
Oh, no.
How did Deathclock get Terrigen Mist from the Inhumans? Whatever. This isn't about them. This is about our 2 dueling bands who, by the type of coincidence that only bad writing can create, have all undergone Terrigenesis and developed what some might refer to as superpowers. Every band member of both Spinal Tap and the Flight of the Conchords have developed a unique power, and possibly look very different from how they did before. Advocates, tell me how your band members have changed, powers and all. And please don't make them all have something uncreative like music-based powers, or else I'm just gonna name Deathclock the winners. Team Spinal Tap, you can amuse me first.
All right. Well, Colin, I'll start with one of our band members, David St. Hubbins, who
Yes.
I think it's pretty obvious what his superpower would be, because you see, he is named after St. Hubbins, the patron saint of quality footwear. With that in mind, I believe the Terrigen Mist would unlock the ancient powers of his namesake, and David St. Hubbins' feet would be transformed into the most stylish shoes of all time that would not only look fantastic, but would afford him the ability to move extremely quickly and gracefully across the stage. With these shoes on his feet, actually these shoes are now his feet, he will be able to perform the most amazing onstage moves and wow the audience with his ability to enhance his music via his footprint.
Not only moonwalking, but I mean, we've been talking Bowie the entire time. He can pull some labyrinth moves, walking up the walls and walking on the ceiling.
You mean Bowie, who, by the way, lost all his confidence in his ability to help the Flight of the Conchords? I don't think he's going to help you.
And of course only existed in their mind. But moving on.
Yeah.
Derek Smalls, as foretold when he had his portrait sketched by Janine, the lady friend of David St. Hubbins, will transform into a physical manifestation of his zodiac sign, specifically Cancer the crab. So he will be surrounded in a carapace, and he will be granted a superhuman strength and little cool antenna things and an ability to walk sideways really well. And his mighty crab-like libs will give him the ability to play bass in a way that no other bassist has before. And of course, all of the metalhead fans in the audience will rock out at how totally badass this is.
The drummer, whoever
I
happens
have
to
a
be
good
drumming
one for
for
that
Spinal
one. Okay.
Tap right now, the drummer for Spinal Tap is now indestructible and immortal.
I was going to say that he has the ability to reconstitute himself.
He's Wolverine on steroids.
Yes.
And also, with a little bit of apocalypse dashed in there, too. The dude simply can't die. He will never die. He will live till the end of eternity, and he will be playing drums that whole time, thus rendering one of Flight of the Conchords' arguments utterly ineffective. Now, Nigel...
Yeah, we were thinking he becomes transparent so that everyone can see his glowing green skeleton. And turns out his shirt was correct.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah.
Nigel basically is going to become Skullfire from X-Men 2099. All right, he's going to be able to channel the energy of all power going through the musical amplifiers and equipment, and just be able to use it to boost his sound waves. But he's going to translate electrical energy into sound and be able to just totally boost his music way past 11, you guys. All right, you don't even know. And he's going to look like a gigantic, fiery, glowing green skeleton while he's doing it.
And not to mention that when this happens, of course, all of the other power in the arena is going to go out. So the only source of light will be the glowing green skeleton.
Yes. That'll be all the audience will be able to focus on.
Yeah.
All the audience that has not died of Teragenesis, that is.
All right. Are the Conchords with their new powers going to take the floor now?
Well, I'm gonna go with Jermaine. The Terrigen Mist.
Are his powers oriented?
You'll see. The Terrigen Mist has transformed Jermaine into his alter ego Bowie, who can float through space and time, inspiring people to express themselves with music, penis tattoos, and eye patches.
Now, that is incredibly powerful.
Jermaine's lumps have grown into a mighty pair.
Oh, God.
They can impregnate
It's horrible.
both men.
It's like Jared.
That can impregnate both men and women with a mere glance. And every child born from this union has powers beyond what we could even imagine.
Are you saying that
well.
in this small segment he made all of the ladies in the area pregnant?
Or in the first two rows, as their live version goes.
And last but not least, his lips have expanded to envelop the world in a giant pillowy kiss that brings about world peace across all nations.
Combined with Jermaine's new Bowie and lip-based powers.
I was going to say all the powers.
Yes. I'm going to say that Brett turns into his alter ego, the Prince of Parties.
Oh, shit.
He generates a very nice velvet shirt with a floofy sort of cravat in the front. Any step he takes is a leaping prance, and more to the point, he can shape reality with the words that he says. So when he says that he's a pitcher of holy water, he literally becomes a pitcher of holy water. When he says he is the guru god of ganja, he is the guru god of ganja. So Brett's new reality manipulation powers as the Prince of Parties will ultimately seal the doom of Spinal Tap in and of itself. However, there are two...
He's Franklin Richards?
He is Franklin Richards. However, there are two other people in the area that are also being exposed to Terrigen Mist, and those people are Murray and Mel. Mel is, of course, going to become the Demon Woman. Her breasts will become balls of fire, as the song has foretold. All of this was foretold in prophecy. You see, the Flight of the Conchords knew that this event would happen, and all of their music has been leading up to it. So Mel will become the demon woman, and with her new succubus powers, the entire crowd will be all the more inclined to join the side of the Flight of the Conchords, as if, the new reality-altering and world-enveloping lip powers that were developed weren't enough. And then, what was I about to say for Murray?
Werewolf?
Oh, that's a fantastic
If
idea.
anyone in the audience gets that, you win.
Yes.
If you don't, what the fuck are you doing with yourself? Watch.
What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah, watch that movie right now. Actually, no, wait. Finish the podcast first, then watch the movie.
Oh my gosh, I had something for Murray. I'm totally blanking on it.
Well, too bad. You had enough time.
Okay, I unfortunately don't remember what I had for Murray. But Murray,
It's really cool, whatever it is.
Murray becomes a robot. And not just any robot, but the robot that ultimately brings about the extinction of the human race and, uses poisonous gases to poison their asses, leaving the humans
Actually, their
all-
lungs.
Well, actually, listen, I poked one. It was dead.
Wow. Fantastic, guys. I have no fucking idea who I'm going to name winner. So I might be gone a while. Have fun with the banter. By have fun, I mean be mean to each other. Bye.
All right, I
God damn.
am genuinely sweaty.
I'm exhausted.
On your brow or not on
Just
your brow?
just all of the above.
Not
Just-
a dry seat in the house.
Yep. Anywhere I have pores, they've just opened the floodgates. Oh, damn it, I remembered what Murray was now.
What was it?
What was it?
I was going to say that the Terrigen Mist acts to him the way Mutagen does in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and so he would turn into a humanoid sheep. And
Oh God.
just like a ram, basically.
Oh, that's
have
awesome.
have superhuman ramming powers and like hooves that can kick down walls. That sort of thing.
I was gonna try and do the trump card whereby Ian Faith is also affected, proves the truth of his last name and simply becomes God. But
No,
as we know, such arguments are not allowable on Smash Fiction.
no, you also know that the power would imbue his cricket bat.
His cricket bat would become like a one of those cursed weapons with an ego from D&D.
Oh sure, there it is.
You know
There's
what
the
I mean?
D&D reference.
I had
I
one in
was
my
I was
notes,
worried about it.
but yeah,
I saw you had one in your notes column, but you didn't drop it, so
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
to
you kind
I had to
of covered the
shoehorn
ground.
one in here.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you having my back.
Yeah. It's gonna he's gonna fail his wisdom checks, and the cricket batch is gonna take him over.
I enjoyed getting to rewatch Spinal Tap and pretty much almost every episode of Flight of the Conchords.
Oh God, they're both so good.
Yeah.
I definitely
Yeah.
the research for this one was super fun.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get to drop my favorite quote, Miles.
What's that?
The Concord say about themselves, our story is the story of two guys who start at the bottom and with a lot of hard work continue along the bottom and finally end up at the bottom.
You should have dropped that. As
I
part of the
know!
argument, 'cause it's true.
I was looking through my notes and I saw that, and
I have returned.
ah!
Sorry, I didn't mean to pop out behind you like that.
So that's what that feels like.
Oh, Batman. He's been here all along.
I really, really wish I could just call Ty because this was so hard, but I can't. So I think I'm gonna have to give it to Flight of the Conchords.
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
Oh!
Oh, man.
Oh.
Man, it was so close.
It's just because Hannah talked about how sexy they are, isn't it?
That's a compelling argument.
They are sick.
Like everyone's arguments were so good.
I'm not crying, it's just raining on my face.
Oh, this is one of my favorite ones so far. Oh my gosh. I will say though, Jermaine's pillowy lips bringing world peace, and then Murray's robot form killing everyone is why we can't have nice things.
I gotta say, we did our lightning round first, and I was like, damn, I thought me and Colin did pretty damn good at that.
Yeah.
And then Hannah comes out with Jermaine transforming into David Bowie and bringing world peace to everyone. And then Brett basically becomes Franklin Richards, and I was like, ah, fuck. We didn't think big enough with this one, Colin.
That's what happens when you party with the party prince, man.
Man.
Hannah, thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
Very
it was a
much
pleasure
so.
having you.
Very much so.
Yeah, right.
You're welcome.
Where can people find other things by you on the internet?
Well, I actually have a podcast of my own.
What
Me
is
and
it?
my brother make a strange little podcast. It's called the All New Pasembi Kinstan Show. PSEMBIKINSTAN. He is also a man, so you might also find him on the internet. He's a man and a legend, and me and my brother ride it, and we talk about penises a lot and carrots, a lot of vegetable talk. So yeah, just have a look.
Are
It's a bit weird
those related in any way to the penis talk, or is it just
sometimes.
those are your two
I mean,
wheelhouses?
I think it's probably true that vegetables are good for one's penis.
Sure.
Yes.
I always knew you were in the pocket of big
Yes.
carrot, Miles.
You know me, sell out to the bone.
Well, we lost. I'm sure I'd feel much worse if I weren't under such heavy sedation.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Smash Fiction. Next time, Geralt versus Link.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman, with logo designed by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our theme song, which is called Hitman. You can find his work at www.incompetech.com.
You can follow the Smash Fiction podcast on Twitter at SmashFicPodcast and search for us on Facebook and Tumblr.
Subscribe on iTunes, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
If I can even spell it myself.
It's business time.
Oh wait, no, we lost, so I should just
Yeah.
Business hours are over,
No, I should-
baby.
Here lies Colin and Miles, and why not?
Oh my gosh, there's so many good quotes just still coming.
It's business. It's
Business
time.
time.